would startups want to be getting into this? I think they would. If I mean, there are a number of companies that are working on this, none that I can name off the top of my head for right now, just because, as you get into, startup world and just kind of business in general, there's companies that do everything. There are companies that, things that you've never even heard of until you start getting into it. Should they be doing this? I mean, I think certainly they should, but it really comes down to the level of expertise that the organization brings on board, right? One of the reasons why I think healthcare records are so, if you've ever looked inside on the physician side of things, of an actual healthcare, of an EMR system, basically, there's menus that go all over the place, notes that don't make sense, button placement that doesn't look right. And the overall user experience is actually very challenging. And a lot of times it comes down to the people that spec out a product, say, okay, we need this, and they just kind of run down a list of all things they need. They give it to a product manager or a series of, or a set of like software engineers, and they'll build something and it works, but it only works from their perspective because they're trained differently. And so you'll find that a lot of the successful companies have some degree of like physician input from the get-go. And if they don't have that, then certainly like that's one of the first things that they add to it, right? Because not everyone can hire a doctor to be like, all right, you want to come start a company with me and do this and that and the other. And so, you need to have some kind of like user feedback there. So how this addresses or applies to your question is like, startup companies can move more nimbly than larger incumbents, right? Because there really is, from my limited understanding of business, like there's very little incentive for a company to move outside of its core competency, right? And so what they'll do is that they'll just partner with, these smaller companies, or even just acquire them, right? I mean, you look at your Facebooks and they're experts at social media and marketing, but like they didn't really have like a good, messaging platform, or a good, image sharing wasn't that great. So then they bought Instagram, they bought WhatsApp, they bought, all these other companies and things like that to make it part of their portfolio. And, your other companies like Google are something very similar. So yeah, so because there's not as much market incentive for companies that have established themselves in some particular part of a sector, it makes it slightly more difficult to kind of move out of that. And with that, but companies are addressing this, and that's why there's like, companies will, even larger ones will section off part of their not endowment, but part of their capital or what have you, to invest in other companies, to support them and to bring them up. So, I mean, from my point of view, like I see this almost as like a collaborative space, and that it can be it can be, one of the big guys, or it can be one of, the little fish in the pond kind of thing. So it can go either way.